everybody. I wanted to share something with you real quick that I learned the other day. So when my husband goes on work trips, myself and our daughters are here on the homestead, and we have definitely lots of friends that can help out and whatnot. But most of the time, I can handle things on my own. And each time my husband goes on a work trip, I kind of have what I call like these, I guess, like God moments where God really shares like what something I need to learn. And I was telling my husband the other day that I feel like a lot of times the reason, like, this is the first time ever in our entire relationship, and my husband and I have been together for 14 years, that my husband's ever traveled for work and I've ever been alone with the kids. And ironically, it's on 40 acres in the middle of nowhere. Hey, the wilderness. So how fitting is that I learned stuff out in the wilderness alone. And so my most recent, basically, epiphany from God is that I've been relying too much on my husband and his physical presence as my protection. So as you can imagine, we've moved halfway across the country. We moved away from all our family. Now, we do have very close friends here now that are like family, but we moved away from all our family onto 40 acres into the middle of nowhere, and have literally started a homestead from nothing. Like, when I say nothing, I mean nothing. There was nothing on this property except for ourselves. And so it's one of those things where I realized I've been relying on my husband a lot to be that source of protection for me, to feel safe, to feel secure. And I haven't been putting enough effort or emphasis on the fact that God's protecting us as well and taking care of us and watching over us. And so I basically had this epiphany the other night, and realized, I was talking to my husband about it, and basically about feeling safe or not feeling safe when he's gone and whatnot. And him and I both agreed that I needed to get into the Word, which I was already going to do anyways. And I was reading the Bible that night, and I was in Isaiah, and that's the book I was reading at the time. And then I realized it just didn't feel right. Like, I felt like I needed to get a message from somewhere else. And so I flipped to Psalms, which I haven't really read all that much of. And it was all about protection and God being your protection. And, it's David. And, David talking about God protecting him and everything like that. And so it really hit home for me, like, over and over and over again, about God being our protection. And even above my husband, God is our protection. And, God is our protection for our entire family. And so I had this epiphany, texted to my husband, that I realized I'm putting too much emphasis on him as a man and my husband to protect us, and not enough emphasis on God and his protection over our family. And that I need to be leaning more on God and less on my husband. In the sense of, like, realizing that God is our protection, like, over our entire family. He's the covering over our entire family. And yes, my husband is the covering for myself and our daughters, but he's the physical covering, and he's not the ultimate covering. The ultimate covering is God. And so I had that realization, and realized that I needed to put a lot more faith and trust in God protecting us. I still need to be smart. I don't need to be doing stupid things, but I need to realize that God is watching out for us, especially even while my husband's gone. And so I had that realization, and then basically the next night we had a tornado warning, and we live in a camper. And I've talked about, Oklahoma having tornadoes, and I am not afraid of tornadoes because I'm from Florida. That's a thing in Florida. Hurricanes and tornadoes, they happen. I respect them greatly, though. I know for a fact that they can tear your life upside down in a heartbeat. And so I don't live in fear of the fact that there's tornadoes in Oklahoma. I respect the fact that there's tornadoes in Oklahoma, and I will do what I need to do to take care of my family in that situation. And so we get a tornado warning the next night. I basically realized God's our protection, and then, hey, look, tornado warning. And there's a ridge behind our property, and I had seen that the weather was getting kind of bad. I knew there was a tornado warning for the area. It was barely even windy or rainy at our house, and watching the weather, I knew where it was at. It was way south of where we were at. But the direction it was moving was towards our area, and where the storm was. There wasn't a tornado yet. It was just a storm. And so I'm keeping an eye on it, watching the weather and everything else. And finally, they're talking about, like, if a tornado does happen, it should happen around this location and blah, 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 and this, that, and the other thing. And I'm looking at it. I'm like, oh my gosh, they're literally talking about the road right in front of our house. Time to get out. And so I basically grabbed my daughters. My husband's not home, mind you. He's, several hundred miles away on work. And grab my daughters and grab our stuff. And, the stuff that I know that we need to grab in this kind of situation. Grab that stuff, throw in the vehicle, and go to a friend's house. We bug out. And I text my husband, and I text all our friends that were bugging out to a certain friend's house. And they knew where we were going and everything else. And my husband knew, because he was working at the time when all this was going on. So it's not like he could respond super fast to anything I text him. So I basically put out the word that we were bugging out. And so we bugged out, and it turned out to be a nothing burger. There was some wind and rain and hail, like, south of us. But nothing where we were at specifically. Nothing on our property. Like, when we came back the next day, there literally wasn't, like, a branch down. Like, there was nothing. And we barely had any rain. And so, it was one of those things where it was a very timely message for me to get. And like I said, anytime that my husband goes on a trip, I always receive a message from God about something I'm supposed to learn, something about myself or my family or, my place, and this, that, and the other thing. And, there's been a lot that I've learned by being here alone without my husband while he's been on these work trips. And I'm thankful for them. And I realize that God's using this time for me to be basically these times when my husband's gone, to have that moment with just God, to have that moment where I'm not talking to my husband more than I'm talking to God. I'm literally like the person, I have children. I talk to my children, but adult communication mostly, unless I'm at work, because I do work now part-time, is with God. Like, if I'm out in the field working with animals, I'm talking to God. Like, if I'm out doing plants or doing something else, I'm talking to God. And so I think God's using this time, well, I know God's using this time to teach me whatever I need to be taught in order to become a better person, to become a better mom, a better wife, a better woman, just all around, a better friend. And, it's interesting though that God, the lesson that I learned this time when my husband was gone was literally within the last 2 days of a 1.5 week long trip. And it was, the day after the tornado happened, or the tornado warning happened, pretty much the next day after that, he came home. And so it was one of those things that God gave me the message that I needed to learn real fast, because pretty much right on time, because I wasn't really scared when the whole tornado warning was going off, and I could see the clouds behind the ridge that's behind our property, and I was like, oh, those clouds don't look good. Like, there's a different look to tornado clouds or potential tornado clouds versus just regular clouds and regular thunderstorms and stuff like that, and they definitely had a different look. And I think I would have been a lot more afraid with my husband not being here if I hadn't received that message. I was more sad and concerned for my girls because they were worried about all our animals, and then I had to explain to them, like, animals have really good natural instinct. Like, they know what to do in these kind of situations. Like, they're all free and able to move around. Like, they'll be okay. And talking to them about that kind of stuff. But I was more concerned about my daughters and their feelings than I was about whether we were safe and being protected, because I knew God was watching out for us. I knew God was giving me the discernment I needed to have in order to keep my family safe. And even though my husband wasn't there, God had given me the courage to be able to take care of my family in that situation where it was up to me. Like, whether we bugged out or not was entirely up to me and my choices. And God gave me that ability to make that decision without being scared, without being nervous, without being frightened. Because it is kind of it is definitely like a scary situation to have to bug out and not have your husband around. It's one of those things where, like, I really got to be on my game and really know what I'm doing and know where I'm going and everything else. And at the same time, it was a good lesson that I learned that I needed to better my bug out game when my husband's not around, because normally my husband's the one that's in charge of that stuff, and so I need to make sure that I'm more aware of what I need to do to bug out when I need to bug out for, like, storms or whatnot. So, yeah, God has some timely messages, y'all. Um, and it was a beautiful thing. It really was. I think I found more beauty in that situation than anything. And I just wanted to share it with y'all because I don't know what message you're looking for. I don't know if you're looking for security and protection or whatever you may be looking for, but just open yourself up to God, talk to Him, and talk to Him a lot, and be willing to listen to what He has to say to you. And if you are in a situation, if you live anywhere where there's severe weather, have a bug out plan or have like a stay put plan or whatever. I mean, we live in a camper. There's no stay put plan if there's like super crazy severe weather. There's our neighbors have offered up their storm shelters to us. But at the time, not having my husband around, there was no way I was going to try to run to a storm shelter that's, 600 yards away with 3 small children. So for me, the best option was to bug out. And so make sure when you're in that kind of situation that you do have a plan, that you do know what you're doing, whether you're a father, a mother, whatever. Like, have a bug out plan for severe storms and have like a backpack or something. Like, with, basically, I think my husband's heard people call it like a naked bag. And basically, like, if you got stuck somewhere and you had nothing, like, what would you need? Certain clothing or whatnot. And create that so that you have that. So you have that wherever you're at. And if you need to, like, bug out because of a really bad storm, you can just grab that backpack and go, kind of thing. But yeah, so just some stuff learned, guys. I hope whatever message you're hoping to learn or hear or whatever, you hear it soon. But of course, if you do have any questions about anything, feel free to drop them in the comments below, and please hit that subscribe button and that bell to receive notifications for my next videos. Y'all have a great day. Bye.